Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and it's time for another workout. And today was dynamic effort bench press day, speed bench with chains. Now, I'll talk more about accessory stuff in a minute, but the main work today was 10 sets of 3 with speed bench. For those curious for this wave, because this is the second week of the wave, so we're doing 215, we'll go up to 225. With 65 pounds of chains with compensatory acceleration, which means I'm exploding as hard as I possibly can. Now, you guys know my bench is well above 300 at this point. As far as my legit pause bench, you guys have all watched me bench because I bench heavy every Tuesday. So obviously this is lightweight, right? And that's the whole point. We're using fairly lightweight for this stuff. We could calculate percentages and everything, but generally because the bench is smaller than, say, the squat, like box squats, I go up 20 pounds on every week in the 3-week wave each time. With these, I only go up 10 pounds. So I started with 205, then 215, then 225, plus 65 pounds of chains. As you guys can see, when I'm at the lockout, the entire chain is just about an inch off the ground. I actually space my lead chains specifically so that the chains just barely clear the ground, so that I have the full amount of chain at the top. So at the top, it's around 280, and at the bottom it's around 230, 235, right? So that's what we're working with for the speed work today. And what I'm focusing on now is really getting good at exploding as hard and as fast as I possibly can. Meaning I'm really focusing on being explosive. So on these, I'm actually pausing. And, people come in and they don't understand this stuff, and they'll be like, oh man, I'm glad to see you're pausing now. And it's like, well, I'm not going to be pausing again when I go back to bands. So enjoy it. But the whole point there is that with the bands, you get an overspeed eccentric, and there's a benefit to not pausing. With these, because you're not quite getting that as much, I can go ahead and pause and just focus on the explosiveness, but we'll rotate these every 3 weeks. So we're getting kind of that constant variation happening. And what people need to remember is that, yes, I'm doing more and more and more accessory work. And a lot of times they're going to be smaller movements. They're going to be fluff movements. They are going to be fluff and pump. The difference here is that this is after we've done heavy work, right? All of our heavy work is being done in the week. And with this sort of training, keep in mind, we are hitting maxes every week. We're hitting maxes every week. We are doing heavy work. Then we're doing all this speed work. Then we're doing all the more fluff exercises. But even then, those are carefully selected. We're looking at stuff like, hey, where can I build the most muscle with the lowest amount of overall extra fatigue on me? Because what people need to remember, it's one thing to talk about, yeah, we can build muscle with very low reps and heavyweight, and you can. But then the argument made towards the higher volume stuff is, of course, well, it may not give you quite as much strength, and you could be neglecting neural efficiency. Well, all of that goes away once you do the heavy work. In other words, if you're hitting some maxes or very, very high intensity lifts every week, and yes, I'm using the traditional term intensity, not the bodybuilder term. We're going to use the strength and conditioning term intensity, which means heavy, right? The highest intensity you can do is a 1 rep max, right? If you can do 3 reps with it, it's not that high of intensity. So if you're doing the high intensity work, you are getting the max strength training. You are getting the max strength training. So you're not really losing that effect by doing the other stuff. So what we're looking for is efficiency of volume. And in other words, you can usually stimulate the most hypertrophy with higher reps for the amount of time you spend, right? Because we do have exercise economy to think about. In other words, sure, I probably could build as much size doing a bunch of triples as I could with, say, 4 or 5 sets of 10, 4 or 5 sets of 15, right? How many more sets is it going to take me? It's going to take me a lot more time with no real additional benefit. People say, well, why? Wouldn't you be gaining slightly more strength on the neural side? No, not really, because we're already covering that every week. We already do maximum strength training. That's already covered. We're not going to get more of it just by doing that on our smaller exercises. And the same thing with this dynamic stuff. We are getting the dynamic stuff through 3 big movement patterns every single week, right? A squat, bench, and a deadlift variation. All right, the speed strength is covered. So everything else that I do is there for hypertrophy purposes. And we'll be looking at things like, where can I get the most additional size in the right places with the least amount of fatigue that I have to recover from? And can we do it with time efficiency, right? So that's what a lot of it comes down to. But the point is that I would never ever tell anybody come in and just do a bunch of high volume training, right? We would never do that. That's not ideal. In fact, I wouldn't even say that's ideal for hypertrophy. As a secondary stress, right? As a secondary stress, it's fine. But the speed work, I felt like all of this was good. Like I felt like I was really, really fast for the first 8. Then I've noticed that maybe the last set or 2, I felt like I was slowing down a little bit, but that's fine because we're kind of working at that threshold. But I'm noticing I'm getting better with the chains now. The chains actually feel better. I'm not getting that cramping and everything this time. I feel like I'm able to explode better. I'm not getting the same cramping, and I didn't get the same cramping when doing the incline and stuff either. So I'm adapting to all the extra training volume. I'm adapting to the new form of speed work. And so over time, we're just going to get better and better at all of it, right? And keep going up. Keep going up. And then incline bench. All right, so what I'm doing on these, now that I've gotten used to doing a little bit of incline, now I'm going to make them as hard as possible. So what's the point we come to? Well, we want to be able to get as much strength and muscle as we can with the lightest weight possible, right? Because this is an accessory movement. So how do we do that? Slightly narrower grip, pausing on every rep, stopping on the chest. This is harder. This is way harder. That's what we want. Pause reps, moderate to close grip. I want to make the range of motion as long as possible and have to go from a dead stop off the chest. Because why am I doing this? I'm doing this to thicken my chest up more. I want more chest to help with my bench. Now, obviously, I need even more tricep than I need chest, but what I want to do, because so much of my training is geared towards triceps right now, and it will be, I just need to make sure with one additional exercise that my chest doesn't become a weak point or lag, especially when I do a lot of touch and go stuff like the band work for the speed work, right? We just need to make sure. And so this is there to ensure that for now. And I'm really, really weak at it. And if I'm weak at it, then we know it's a weak link in my bench. Right? The only downside with this is that I was really fatigued from it. Like when I got to the 4th set, I couldn't do a 5th. Like I felt like I think I got 8 or 9 reps on the 4th set, and I had to stop. I had to stop. I was done. That's all I could do. Felt like if I tried to do another rep, I might have gotten pinned. That's what happens. I mean, it's like, man, that happened a set early this week. Yes, it did, or on this workout. And it's because I'm still fatigued from the speed work, and then I'm doing the pause. I brought my grip in a hair, and I'm pausing on every rep. And that's making it harder, and it's just generating a lot of fatigue. Now, that's fatigue that we'll adapt to. That's fatigue that's going to cause hypertrophy. That's fatigue that's going to make me stronger. People will say, well, are you training for the hypertrophy? You think you're going to get that right now? Yeah, I think I'm going to get that. I feel like I am growing. I'm staying at the same body weight, but I'll recomp. And that's going to be the game plan. I had to be realistic about stuff. You know, I mean, when I look at things, if I cut a lot leaner, I'm going to have to bulk afterwards. So I might as well just recomp for a while, continue the recomp. Because realistically, when I go look at different charts and I look at the data that's there, I'm not going to be super competitive in a 198. And it's because of height. It is because of height. And that's where we have to be honest about that. That's stuff I talk about with you guys a lot, that weight classes are height classes in disguise. You want to be the shortest, leanest guy in your weight class in powerlifting. You want to be the shortest, leanest guy in your class. You'll almost be guaranteed to win if you can pull that off. Assuming you've trained for maximum strength correctly and your technique is on point. So that's the idea. So I need to maximize body composition for the 220 and not have to do big water cuts, right? Just walk around below 220. Fill out the class. Get leaner. So that's going to be the plan. So people say, well, how lean are you going to get? I'm going to get a lot leaner. I need to put on another 10 pounds of muscle and lose another 10 pounds of fat. That's what I need to do. And go ahead and just fill this class out. It's going to take time. So on to laterals. So people say, why didn't you do JM presses or something else? Because I couldn't. My pecs were shot. So I decided to do tricep work at the end, and we'll get to that when we get there. Decided to give my triceps a little bit of a break, do my other accessory work now, and then finish with a tricep movement. Because I do need to make sure my triceps get worked. They do need to get worked. I need to make sure that they're getting enough training volume. I need my triceps to get thicker. I need them to get stronger, and that will continue to increase my bench. But for now, because my pressing strength is just shot, I can't handle more presses. I would love to be doing JM presses, but I feel like I'm not going to be able to use any appreciable weight on them because my chest was completely shot after all the other pressing. So we're going to have to go to smaller movements. My triceps felt like they still had some strength left in them. So I decided to just hit them directly with a smaller exercise. But these laterals, I went up 1 rep today, right? Instead of 10s, I did 11 because I felt like I was able to. And that's going to be what I do with this because I just have this one set of dumbbells right now as far as real dumbbells go. That's fine. This is just a volume exercise. It's there to make sure my side and maybe my rear delt and traps get a little extra work. A little bit of stability for my bench press. And so if I get up to where I'm doing sets of 20 with this, that's fine. We're still getting hypertrophic response. We're just trying to thicken up my shoulders because it'll help stabilize my bench press. And then we did our strict curls. I did the same weight this time as I did on Tuesday. 5 sets of 10. The first set felt hard. It always does. And then once I get in the groove, it feels a little easier. But I do feel like they're working. I do feel like they're training my biceps effectively. At least I feel it. I feel my biceps brachialis, even my forearms to some extent. So they're doing the job. And, you know, someone had asked me, hey, I thought you said cheat curls are better. Cheat curls are better for the novice. Cheat curls are great for the novice because you guys need to be doing everything needs to be a back and core and everything else exercise. Novice lifters aren't strong enough to worry about that stuff. In fact, the more training for your core and back and everything that you can do on every single lift that you do, the better. That's why I have novice lifters do everything standing. I don't do anything supported other than a bench press. But as you get stronger, you don't have room for all that. I already do extra back and core work. I do at least 10 sets of hyperextensions and 10 sets of glute ham raise, crunches, and all that stuff every week in addition to all this axial loading. All right, I don't have room for that. So now we're just coming in and just hitting the biceps directly. And they're getting hit directly anyways, but we're taking other things out because I'm not worried about it. Those areas get overworked in some cases anyways, and this is a contested lift. So because this is a contested lift that is a recognized lift, I might as well train it also. So it's still sport specific. And that's the only other reason also. Just a minor factor, but the fact of the matter is this is a contested exercise. So even though it might seem a little fluffy and it's a strict thing that takes the back and everything else out of it, that's fine. It's a contested lift. I'll go ahead and do it. Might as well get good at all the power lifts, right? You know, might as well get good at all of them. Might even compete in this later if I feel like it. And again, it works though. It hits everything that I need it to hit. And I don't have to worry about any extra back pumps and fatigue and all of that. Because a lot of times my lower back and everything and my thoracic erectors and all of that are sometimes really fatigued by the time I get to this day. Because of the 2 different days of squatting and deadlifting and then all the extra core work I do, sometimes those areas are just fatigued. And this just lets me give them a break. They're getting a complete break on my bench press day, which is kind of nice right now. Because again, those things do need to recover. They do need to recover. And I work those areas so hard, particularly with all my accessory movements. But yeah, I feel like this is giving me the desired effect. I'm just going to stick with 5 sets of 10 for now and see if I can increase the weight slowly over time. And then we might have to periodize it a bit. When it stalls, we'll periodize it a bit. But I think right now, 5 by 10 works. Then I did just band tricep press downs. Notice I'm leaning forward a bit so that we get that stretch, right? Getting that stretch. And the first 2 sets I just did 20, then the second 2 sets I took to failure. So people say, well, why do this? My triceps need extra work. They can handle the extra volume. They need the extra volume to grow. This variation lets me train a stretch reflex very, very hard. It lets me strengthen the connective tissue a little bit with a little bit of blood flow because it's something I can do with very, very high reps. So we're going to improve blood flow to everything. Just doing a really high volume exercise just to get a slightly different training effect because I do so much heavy work And I know my triceps need more work like this, and this exercise, when I played around with it, makes my triceps cramp up so bad that my arms wouldn't move. So it's clearly having the desired effect. It does work a movement pattern that we do want for carrying over to the bench. And we are training this stretch reflex, so it's fine just to mess with for a little while. But again, we're getting a stretch reflex. It works. Does it mean I'm going to do this all the time? No, I want to get back to JM presses. But I can't handle the extra pressing volumes of any type. I feel like after the incline bench, it's just shot. But I want more tricep training. This lets me do it. And again, we've got the added benefit of that stretch reflex with the bands. Hopefully we're going to get a good training effect from it. My triceps will thicken up. I'll improve the work capacity of them, and then I'll be able to do something like JM presses and work that back in again. But yeah, interesting. These things give a pump. They leave everything cramping. And it was just a good way to finish my triceps off at the end of this bench workout, because that is a weak link for me still. So I hope it has been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.